Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into the razor-thin legal line between two of the most serious crimes out there, culpable homicide and murder. Now, under India's new criminal code, what really separates them isn't just the physical act, it's what was going on deep inside the killer's mind. So, here's how we're going to tackle this. We're going to build this legal case from the ground up, step by step. We'll start with the absolute basics, what homicide even is. Then we'll see how a prosecutor proves the physical act. From there, we dive into the most important part, the guilty mind, and see how that creates a whole spectrum of blame. And finally, we'll get to a fascinating twist, when murder isn't treated like murder. All right, first things first. Before we can get into all the complex details, we have to understand the fundamental crime at the very heart of this whole discussion. At its core, it's really that simple. Homicide is just the killing of one person by another. That's it. This is our foundation, our starting line for everything that follows. Okay, so let's say a crime has been committed. How does a prosecutor even begin to build a case? Well, before they can even think about what was going on in someone's head, they have to prove two crucial physical facts. Step 1, you have to prove a death actually occurred. Sounds obvious, right? But it has to be legally established. And step 2, and this is a big one, you have to prove a direct, unbroken link between the accused action and that death. To really get why that causal link is so critical, let's walk through a quick story. Imagine person A attacks person B and gives them a pretty nasty cut on their hand. So an ambulance is called. But on the way to the hospital, the ambulance driver does something reckless and gets into a totally separate, fatal car crash. And tragically, person B dies in that crash. Now here's the key. The cause of death was the crash itself, not the original hand injury from person A. So, the big legal question is person A guilty of homicide? The answer is a clear no. Why? Because that chain of causation was broken. A whole new event, the driver's actions, came in and changed everything. A is on the hook for the injury, for sure, but not for the death. Okay, so once that physical act is locked in, the whole investigation takes a massive pivot. We move from the outside world of actions and consequences to the inner world of the accused mind. And this is where we meet a really important legal concept, mens rea. It's Latin for guilty mind. See, it's not just about what you did, it's about your intention or knowledge when you did it. And get this, the entire legal distinction between a lesser charge, like culpable homicide, and the most serious one, murder, it all hinges on this one single thing. What was going on in the accused's head at that exact moment? So let's put these two side by side. This is where it gets really interesting because you can see exactly how the law draws the line between these two very serious crimes. Look at this. It's almost like a spectrum of blame. For culpable homicide, the key word is likely. The act was likely to cause death. But for murder, the bar is way higher. The injury was sufficient to cause death, or the act was so reckless it was imminently dangerous. It all boils down to the probability of death. Let's make this real. Imagine a deep cut to someone's thigh. It's incredibly serious, and death is definitely likely from blood loss. That points toward culpable homicide. But now, what if you stab someone in the gut and twist the knife? The law sees that injury as sufficient in the ordinary course of nature to cause death. The probability is just so high, it gets elevated to murder. And the same logic works for knowledge-based acts, too. Let's say you know someone can't swim, and you push them into a deep pool. You have knowledge that your act is likely to cause their death. That's culpable homicide. But what about setting a deadly cobra on someone? That act isn't just likely to be fatal, it's imminently dangerous. The risk is so extreme and death is so certain that it becomes murder. And really, this quote just nails it. It boils everything down to one single principle, the degree of risk. A court has to figure out, was death just a likely result, or was it the most probable one? But wait, it's not that simple. Just when you think you've got it figured out, the law has this fascinating twist. Even when a prosecutor proves a clear case of murder, the story isn't always over. See, the law actually gets, human. It recognizes that in some really extreme situations, like what's legally known as grave and sudden provocation, a person can just lose their self-control. Their mind is so overwhelmed that even though their act technically fits the definition of murder, the law decides to look at it differently. This leads to a really cool legal idea, sometimes called the hit back effect. It works like this. First, the prosecution proves murder beyond a doubt. Then, the defense stands up and says, yes, but one of these special exceptions applies. If the defense succeeds, the murder charge doesn't just go away, it gets hit back and knocked down to the lesser charge of culpable homicide. And that explains a tricky little detail in the law. It's why a direct intention to cause death can actually be listed under both crimes. It's a clever legal design that creates a pathway for someone who fully intended to kill, but did so under an extreme recognized exception, to still be found guilty of a very serious crime, just not murder. Okay, so let's bring it all home. The main takeaway? The line between culpable homicide and murder isn't about the weapon or the result. It's about the mind. Guilt exists on a spectrum, and it's all based on the probability of death. A prosecutor's got to prove the death, the link, and the specific mental state. And even then, these special exceptions can knock a murder charge right back down to culpable homicide. Which leaves us with a really big question, doesn't it? If the entire weight of the law, the difference between a few years in prison and a life sentence, all comes down to what was happening in the privacy of someone's mind, how certain can our justice system ever truly be? It's a huge challenge, trying to find perfect clarity in the most mysterious place of all, the human mind.